Millions bracing for storms from coast to coast. At least 8 reported tornadoes in the south, and the threat isn't over yet, with widespread storms also possibly bringing hail and damaging winds. In the northeast, the potential for freezing rain and dangerous slick roads. Out west, alerts for wind, snow, and avalanches. All of this happening on a busy travel weekend amid raised concerns for safety after another stowaway makes it onto a flight. Plus, more clues emerging in the cause of a deadly plane crash in Central Asia. How new evidence could show what type of weapon may have shot it down as Russia weighs in on the accusations that it's to blame. And we hear from someone who was on board when the jet came down. And the Centers for Disease Control released new findings on bird flu, citing new mutations in a patient hospitalized with a serious case. Could this increase its ability to spread? And what does it mean for the current risk of infection? Good evening, everyone. I'm Juju Chang. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with the rough weather hitting more than 50 million people from coast to coast. These dramatic images of multiple tornadoes touching down just outside Houston, people running for safety, and tonight another round of possible twisters on the way. Out west, damaging ocean waves as the alert continues for wind, high surf, mountain snow, and avalanches. Now the storms are moving east, bringing freezing rain to the I-95 corridor. That weather threatening millions of travelers hitting the roads and flying this weekend, just as the TSA is raising new security concerns and making changes to ticketing checkpoints. ABC's Perry Russum will have the details on the security situation coming up, and meteorologist Greg Dutra is standing by with the forecast and what this could mean for your New Year's plans. But first, here's ABC's Zareen Shah.
Less than 24 hours after multiple tornadoes touching down across southeast Texas, forcing people to scramble to safety.
Oh my God!
The South bracing for another round of dangerous severe weather as millions hit the road today this holiday travel season. Watch as this powerful twister knocks over a postal van. That same neighborhood in southwest Houston badly damaged. The side of this home exposed. The roof nearly ripped off. That is just one of the coast-to-coast storms sweeping across the country. Out west, snow and high avalanche danger. In Colorado, officials expect heavy snow up to 3 feet, and intense winds out west could trigger dangerous avalanche conditions tonight, urging people to stay off the roads in the backcountry from tonight until Monday. In California, a high surf advisory in LA County and Malibu remains. Large waves up to 8 feet high slamming the coastline just days after scenes like this. Boats in a harbor tossed around like toys. Or this dramatic incident, the wharf in Santa Cruz collapsing after a relentless barrage of powerful waves brought it down.
And Zareen Shah joins us now from Malibu. And Zareen, what's the latest on the situation there?
You know, Juju, I gotta tell you, it's not actually that cold outside, but there's hardly a single person in the water. And along the coast, officials are really warning people of high tide, minor coastal flooding, and to stay away from these waters. Juju.
Good warnings. Thank you, Zareen. Let's get right to meteorologist Greg Dutra from our partner station in Chicago, WLS. Here in New York City tonight, Greg, those storms are moving east with more on the way.
That's right, Juju. We just can't get a break on the West Coast, and that translates to coast-to-coast storm systems, too. Now, we start with Northern California, where the atmospheric river is bringing another round in, a total of 3 rounds over the next couple of waves here. They're going to get up to 10 inches of rain, high surf warnings from San Francisco all the way down to L.A., and feet of snow in the Rockies. That's prompting a pretty rare 4 out of 5 high avalanche danger, even below tree line through the Rocky Mountains. Farther east, this weekend brings a renewed threat for tornadoes. There have been warnings already today through Louisiana and into Mississippi, and on Saturday that greatest threats to Louisiana, Mississippi, and into Alabama, and then on Sunday further to the north and east from Georgia, stretching all the way into Virginia, really. And not to be left out, the Northeast has 7 states with winter weather alerts out for freezing rain tomorrow morning. Downright dangerous driving on all of the major thoroughfares, whether it's I-80, 90, 95, and almost the entirety north to south of I-87. And a separate system is on the way right in time for New Year's Eve, possibly, Juju, soaking the revelers that are gathering in Times Square for the ball drop. Back to you, Juju.
Grabbing our umbrellas. Thank you, Greg. And now to those new airport security concerns amid the holiday travel rush. The TSA now working to add more barriers around ticketing checkpoints. This coming just days after a second person in less than a month was caught boarding a Delta flight without a ticket. And tonight, what we're learning about where the stowaway was trying to hide. Here's ABC's Perry Russum.
Tonight, new details on the case of a second person boarding a plane without a ticket. Police in Seattle finding the stowaway in an airport bathroom after Delta Airlines turned the plane around on the tarmac and removed all passengers. Investigators say it happened on Christmas Eve on a Delta Airlines flight headed from Seattle to Honolulu. A spokesperson for Delta says their employees followed procedures. Tonight, TSA says it's working to add more physical barriers around ticketing checkpoints. Airport officials say the stowaway was properly screened at a TSA checkpoint, got through without a boarding pass, then boarded the plane without showing a ticket.
This has got to stop because there is a very definite security risk in having people get aboard without a ticket.
Meanwhile, tonight, hundreds of flights delayed up and down the country as Americans pack the skies in the middle of the holiday travel rush. Airports in Atlanta, Chicago, and Dallas hardest hit by delays.
We were on a flight to Dallas-Fort Worth. It got canceled for bad weather.
AAA says 90% of travelers are driving to their destinations. A busy part of Interstate 80 in northern New Jersey, west of New York City, closed after the sinkhole opened up, consuming an entire lane. Emergency repairs ongoing.
And Perry Russum joins us now. Perry, officials are saying this sinkhole is 40 feet wide and 40 feet deep and created by an old mine shaft. And we're right here in the peak of holiday travel. How long are they saying it'll take to repair it?
Yeah, Juju, this thing is large. It's going to take some time to repair. They're working on it right now, but things might slow down with the weather rolling this weekend. Detours have been set up. We're told to expect delays. Juju?
Perry Russum, thank you. To politics now, and the very public clash of Trump allies over immigration policy. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy among those urging the incoming administration to embrace skilled foreign workers. But that's sparking backlash from other Trump supporters. Here's ABC's White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks.
Tonight, some of President-elect Donald Trump's staunchest supporters at odds with each other over his immigration agenda.
American jobs for American citizen workers. This is a scam, a total scam. And if we got to have a throwdown, let's have it now.
The debate sparked by some of Trump's anti-immigration loyalists, taking aim at his Silicon Valley supporters, including some who have advocated for a visa program for highly skilled foreign workers. The billionaire Elon Musk, the South African-born entrepreneur behind Tesla and SpaceX, said companies face a dire shortage of extremely talented and motivated engineers in America. Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy also defending the visas. Ramaswamy saying our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long. The H-1B visa program allows thousands of foreign workers into the U.S. to work for U.S. companies for up to 6 years in fields like technology and medicine. Former presidential candidate Nikki Haley among those pushing back against Ramaswamy. We should be investing and prioritizing Americans, not foreign workers. In his first term, Trump criticized the visa program and suspended it completely in 2020 during the pandemic.
Mary Alice is traveling with the president-elect. Now, Mary Alice, Trump's team just moments ago making news about TikTok asking the Supreme Court to delay banning the app.
Yeah, the bipartisan law to ban the app is set to go into effect on January 19th, the day before Trump is inaugurated. It would ban the app in the U.S. if it is not sold by its Chinese parent company. But now the Trump team has formally asked the court to delay that deadline to give the incoming president time to try to negotiate a resolution to save the platform, but also address the national security concerns. Juju?
A lot of people watching every twist and turn. Thank you, Mary Alice. Turning overseas now, the survivors of that horrific Christmas Day plane crash are now speaking publicly for the first time, and the investigation continues amid growing concerns about whether a Russian anti-aircraft system accidentally shot at the plane, forcing a crash landing in Kazakhstan. ABC's Inez de la Cotera with late details.
Tonight, survivors of the Christmas Day crash of Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243 in Kazakhstan speaking out, with questions swirling about whether Russian anti-aircraft systems may have accidentally shot the plane down, killing dozens. This man saying he heard a loud bang as the plane approached Grozny. I already realized that it was all over, he says. I decided I should film my last minutes now. His account appearing to line up with what an Azeri crew member recovering at a hospital in Baku told us, saying he heard 3 thuds over Grozny and noticed shortly after that he had been injured. In the left arm, he says, I don't know what touched me. I just looked and saw blood. But our conversation was cut short. Excuse me, I have to turn my phone off, he says. They're not allowing me to speak. U.S. officials acknowledging the possibility an air defense system caused the crash, but other experts already more convinced. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Koga was a ballistics expert on the investigation that determined Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 was shot down by Russian forces in Ukraine in 2014. He says he has no doubt Flight 8243 was also fired upon.
And so this is the typical pattern that you would see from a warhead exploding in vicinity of the fuselage.
And Inez de la Cotera joins us now. Inez, who's conducting the investigation into the crash?
Yeah, Juju, so we know a joint commission has been set up to investigate the crash. It's going to include representatives from Russia, from Azerbaijan, from Kazakhstan. We know the black boxes have been recovered. The big question now, though, is whether Kazakhstan has the capability to decode those boxes.
We know there are a lot of sensitivities. How is Russia responding to it all?
Russia pointing the finger right back at Ukraine. Today we heard from the head of Russia's aviation agency saying that it was because of Ukrainian drones in Russian airspace that the plane couldn't land. So I will say we have heard that from the Russians before. If you think back to the MH17 crash back in 2014, an investigation later found that that flight was shot down by Russian forces in Ukraine. But throughout that investigation, the Russians were pointing the finger at the Ukrainians.
So much to investigate. Inez de la Cotera, thank you. And now to the ongoing war in the Middle East. Gaza's last functioning hospital, Kamal Adwan in northern Gaza, was attacked again today. Israeli troops forcibly evacuated around 350 patients and detained hospital staff for interrogation, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. Video posted online shows 25 men, some stripped to their underwear, being marched away from the hospital. Israeli strikes reportedly killed dozens more in the surrounding area. The IDF admitted to carrying out the operation, claiming the hospital was, quote, a Hamas terror center. And last night, the U.S. military's THAAD system intercepted a missile launched by the Houthis in Israel, or at Israel, rather. In October, the Defense Department announced it would deploy the battery in Israel to boost Israel's anti-air defense systems. A potentially troubling new development about the bird flu. The CDC reporting that the virus mutated inside a severely ill patient in the U.S., possibly making the disease spread more easily. Still, person-to-person transmission has not been reported, and the CDC says the risk to the general public remains low. Here's Phil Lipoff.
Tonight, the Centers for Disease Control finding potentially concerning new mutations in the bird flu from a patient recently hospitalized with a serious case of the virus.
The CDC found that this version of the virus had additional mutations that made it attach to upper airway cells more easily, hinting at a better ability to infect people. That being said, this was only found in the individual that was sick, and there's no reason to believe that this version of the virus is spread more broadly.
But the agency making it clear that the risk to the general public has not changed and remains low. The CDC has confirmed at least 65 cases of bird flu in people in the U.S. this year.
They're monitoring more than 10,000 exposures, but they've only tested 530. What does that mean? That means we're not testing enough. And we know from other viruses that a lot of the spread can be asymptomatic.
For now, the greatest risk may be to animals. Earlier this week, the death of a house cat in Oregon prompting a pet food company to voluntarily recall a batch of its raw frozen pet food that tested positive for the virus.
There's no reason to believe that this version of the virus is spread more broadly in the population, and we've yet to see any person-to-person transmission, which is a good sign that we still have this virus under control.
In California, officials are declaring a state of emergency over the bird flu at dairy farms and are asking people to avoid raw dairy products. Juju?
Well, some potentially troubling news for anyone considering a move in the coming year. Mortgage rates reaching a 5-month high, and new data shows on average it's 35% more expensive to buy a house than rent. Here's Elizabeth Schulze.
Tonight, with mortgage rates at a 5-month high, aspiring home buyers are bracing for another challenging housing market in 2025. New data from real estate firm CBRE finds on average in the U.S., it's 35% more expensive to buy a house than to rent. A new apartment lease costs on average $2,200 per month, while a monthly mortgage payment on a new home is close to $3,000.
Okay, so this is it. This is it.
30-year-old Kristen Holmes in Maryland was on the house hunt for 3 years while paying rent.
It feels like my own.
Saving up enough for a down payment on a fixer-upper. First-time home buyers like Kristen accounting for just 24% of all home sales in the past year, an all-time low.
Why do you think you were able to successfully buy a house at age 30?
I think the first thing is having a plan, each month saving a little bit more, and also working with lenders and understanding what goes behind buying a home is what led me to it.
The average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is now 6.85%, and rates are expected to stay in that 6% range next year. Juju?
Elizabeth Schulze, thank you. And in South Korea, the National Assembly passed a bill to impeach acting President Han Duck-soo. It's the second time in less than 2 weeks South Korean lawmakers have voted to impeach a head of state. The first, President Yoon Suk-yeol, was ousted after briefly enacting martial law in South Korea. Acting President Han's impeachment means he'll be stripped of powers until the Constitutional Court decides to dismiss or reinstate him. It's the first time an acting president has ever been impeached in South Korea. And in a stunning headline, firearms are now the leading killer of kids and teens in the U.S., outpacing car crashes. A study by JAMA Pediatrics analyzing deaths from 2011 to 2021 among people aged 0 to 19. They found that firearm deaths increased by 76%. The largest jump in firearms deaths, 28.9%, occurred in children under the age of 9. Well, new video just released shows the in-custody death of a New York inmate. It shows Robert Brooks being beaten while handcuffed earlier this month. We want to warn you, this video is disturbing. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood with the details.
Tonight, disturbing police body camera video shows corrections officers at an upstate New York prison beating a handcuffed inmate for 15 minutes, the day he was transferred into their facility. In the video from multiple body cameras released today by New York State Attorney General Letitia James, you can see officers choking, punching, and kicking 43-year-old Robert Brooks in the face, torso, and genitals on December 9th, as 2 sergeants and a nurse simply watch and never intervene, according to a deposition by an investigator.
As Attorney General, you have my word that we will use every possible tool available to us to investigate this death thoroughly and swiftly.
It happened at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Utica, about 50 miles east of Syracuse. Brooks was pronounced dead the next day at a nearby hospital. A preliminary autopsy ruling Brooks' death a homicide caused by asphyxia due to neck compression. New York Governor Kathy Hochul ordering the termination of 14 prison staffers, including bystanders. Brooks was serving a 12-year prison sentence for stabbing his girlfriend in 2017. An attorney for his family telling ABC News in part, Mr. Brooks was fatally, violently beaten by a group of officers whose job was to keep him safe. He deserved to live.
And Morgan Norwood joins us now. Morgan, we heard that statement from the family, but what are they saying about questions about what may have preceded that video?
Hi, Juju. Well, the family's attorney saying that she has no reason to believe that the use of force was justified in any way, and that when it comes to the motive, that is unclear tonight. She also calls it, quote, incomprehensible, Juju.
Strong words. Morgan Norwood, thank you. We're going to turn now to some legal headlines today. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani joins us now. Hey, Nima, how are you?
Good, Juju. How about yourself?
I'm well, thanks. Happy holidays. Let's start with that video, which is not at all festive, of an inmate being beaten by prison guards. Now, New York Attorney General Letitia James is investigating what's going on in that video. What next steps might be taken before we know if charges could be filed?
Juju, I fully expect charges to be filed. Here you have an inmate who's in cuffs, Robert Brooks, and he's being struck, he's being punched, he's being kicked. When you have the Attorney General and the governor coming out and making statements, you know that criminal charges are imminent. And of course, we're likely going to see a civil lawsuit on the part of Brooks' family as well.
Now, is there any kind of case that could be made by corrections that this is some type of normal protocol?
Not necessarily. When you're dealing with any type of use of force, doesn't matter if you're a civilian or you're law enforcement, really the same standard applies. It has to be reasonably necessary, self-defense under the circumstances. And when you have someone who is in restraints and who's clearly beaten and bruised and ultimately he dies, you're talking about deadly force, and deadly force is only reasonable if it's to prevent imminent death or serious bodily injury, and there was no real risk to those corrections officers.
So as a former federal prosecutor, what kinds of charges could possibly come out of this investigation for those guards?
Well, we're looking at two potential sets of charges. The first might be state, and obviously they can be prosecuted for anything up to murder, but you also may see federal civil rights charges because, of course, they were acting under color of authority. So it's going to be interesting to see if Trump's new Attorney General and her Department of Justice steps into this case or not.
Really disturbing video. Thank you. Now we're going to switch gears. As we've reported here on Prime, a judge has denied that music mogul Jay-Z's request to uncover the identity of the woman accusing him and Sean Diddy Combs of raping and drugging her when she was just 13. The judge took it a step further, saying that Jay-Z's attorneys might be trying to fast-track the judicial process by repeatedly filing motions. Could this in the end actually hurt Jay-Z's case?
It could, and in the legal world, we call that a bench slap. And Alex Spiro of Quinn Emanuel received some pretty harsh words from the judge in the case, saying that, you know, his attempt to file motion after motion and to fast-track this case for his celebrity client wasn't going to work. So chalk up one win for Tony Busby and his client. Busby, of course, represents many of the victims against Sean Diddy Combs and at least one of the alleged victims against Jay-Z. Substantively, though, I think this is important because it allows the victim to remain anonymous. And unlike many states that allow for victims of sexual assault or sexual abuse to remain anonymous as a matter of course, there's no such rule in the federal system.
Well, I'd be curious what those reasons might be, because we know that those state rape shield laws that you're talking about protect witnesses' identities. And these types of cases, they're routinely kept anonymous. And yet, what are those factors that could lead this judge to agree, maybe down the road, to reveal her identity?
Ultimately, I think the judges that have unmasked or identified these accusers, the judges in those cases have said, well, look, you're talking about allegations that are sometimes decades old, and it's appropriate for the accuser to identify himself or herself to allow Combs to prepare his defense in the case. But I think there's a strategic reason here as well. I think that the defense attorneys in this case, they want to identify the victims to potentially send a message that we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be on the offense, it's not just going to be on the defense. So if you're going to come forward and you're going to make these accusations, you better be prepared to identify yourself in what will be a very public trial.
Very much to look forward to in terms of seeing the courtroom drama play out. But clearly, there's a lot to unpack here. Nima Rahmani, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Juju, as always.
And tonight, a poignant goodbye to a legend at ABC News, Tony Hiroshiki. A storied storyteller, Tony was a beloved cameraman at ABC for more than 40 years, with a decade of that spent covering the Vietnam War alongside a very young Peter Jennings and the rookie, Ted Koppel. He covered it all, from presidential politics to international summits, braving dangers, risking his life, and helping usher in a new generation of anchors, including David Muir. Tony, you will be missed. And still much more to get to here on Prime. An investigation is underway after two backpacks stuffed with more than $1 million worth of cocaine were discovered in the woods on the Canadian border. But next, Linsey Davis takes us through the year's top stories that shook the world of justice. We highlight the most intriguing and talked about legal developments, including Diddy's courtroom drama and the ongoing saga of the Menendez brothers, plus the legal woes of Donald Trump. We hear exclusively from Lara Trump on what it was like to see her father-in-law on trial.
I think, you know, to hear guilty, 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 yeah, it goes straight to your heart.
These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
Let's get this done.
Being a cop is stressful. 24/7.
Every year on the job is different. You never really stop being a rookie.
Because if we lose control, bad things happen.
Work smarter, not harder.
What makes Elton John so iconic?
Everyone's talking about
Elton John.
Sir Elton John.
Elton John.
Elton John.
There will never be another. Everything that you want Elton John to be, he is.
Superstar and a legend.
Now, Elton John opens up the exclusive interview with Elton John.
I'm still standing, and I am better than I ever did. And there's a lot more to come.
Elton John, still standing. Now streaming on Hulu.
Is that my GTO? I built that 15 years ago, and somebody stole it.
Hi, Dad.
There's the thief.
Hey, kids, Santa, Grandpa. Papa! I'm crawling home because I'm broke. I need a place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days. The last time you walked out that door, you looked back at me and gave me a double bird.
I was 18. The double bird was how I ended all our conversations.
All we want is to find our way home.
I'll get you home. But a crew of murderous bounty hunters is coming after us. We have to move fast.
We have no idea who he is.
You can trust me.
You're a Jedi, right?
Of course.
What just happened?
Watch this.
Skeleton Crew. New episodes Tuesdays, only on Disney+.
It feels like we've been keeping this secret for so long.
So long? Because you posted a photo spoiling our crossover episode.
Oh, was I not supposed to do that? But I can finally talk about that hilarious...
Rob, no.
How about when Dee...
What is... No.
Charlie.
Robert. No. You can't talk about it at all. So, any questions?
Wait a second, wait a minute. Looks like there's 3 people coming down the river.
These are the last lands.
What is this?
This is explosives.
Just heard these dynamite blasts down here.
We have to go.
What's the gas?
The national parks around the world
This area is all right now cartel-run gold mine
that have to be saved.
From Sean Diddy Combs to the ongoing saga of the Menendez brothers to President-elect Trump's legal woes, 2024 often found us inside the courtroom, hopefully as mere spectators. Well, in the all-new ABC News special, The Year 2024 with Robin Roberts, ABC News Live Prime anchor Linsey Davis takes us through the year's top stories that shook the world of law and justice. Breaking news as we come on the air. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs arrested in a New York City hotel by federal agents with Homeland Security investigations.
As 2024 comes to a close, Sean Combs still caught in the legal crosshairs. One of music's biggest names arrested and charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He's pled not guilty to all charges and has vehemently denied any wrongdoing.
The criminal prosecution against Sean Combs starts with his ex-girlfriend and protege, Cassie. She came forward with a civil lawsuit that Combs quickly settled, but it caused federal prosecutors to start digging in.
And then at some point, there is just a break in the dam, and that was the video of Cassie.
There were a lot of people that were still in defense of behavior, and I think when that video came out, it changed the conversation significantly.
Combs has tried repeatedly to get out on bail, but prosecutors say even from behind bars, he's been intimidating witnesses paying off witnesses to say nice things about him, calling people he's not supposed to call.
A bombshell accusation today against music mogul Jay-Z. A woman claims that he joined Sean Diddy Combs in sexually assaulting her when she was just 13 years old after the VMA award show in 2000. Jay-Z is vehemently denying the accusation.
Oh my God!
While Diddy's legal woes dominated headlines in 2024, public interest in a 35-year-old crime hit a fever pitch this year, thanks to a wildly popular Netflix true crime series and the real-life courtroom drama of brothers Eric and Lyle Menendez.
One of the most notorious murder trials in U.S. history, the Menendez brothers sentenced to life without parole for murdering their parents. Well, now the Los Angeles DA says he's reviewing new evidence. So could the Menendez brothers go free?
The Menendez brothers case is now under this microscope, and everybody's talking about it.
This new generation has taken up the Menendez brothers case on all kinds of social media. They're more open to understanding claims of abuse, and they want to stand up for abuse victims.
It is kind of remarkable, the generational shifts in how we view horrible things that happen in society and the things that we learn just in the course of 30 years.
And now a case that's just as confusing as it is bizarre. The so-called doomsday leader, Chad Daybell, accused with his new wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, of killing his first wife and Lori's 2 children because he believed they were zombies.
It's all based on this crackpot religious belief that there are zombies and that you have to kill the zombies, and that they were going to create this new post-apocalyptic society together, just the 2 of them.
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
The pair was found guilty of all charges. Lori sentenced to life in prison and Chad sentenced to death. And America witnessed quite a show in 2024. The president-elect spent much of the year off the campaign trail and at a trial, his own trial. We are coming on the air for a moment never before witnessed in American history, a former president on criminal trial. There were 4 total criminal cases, 1 in Manhattan where he faced 34 counts of falsifying business records, 2 federal cases where he was indicted on 4 charges in D.C. and 40 in Florida, and 1 in Georgia where he was indicted on racketeering and other charges.
The fact that Donald Trump, who is living the glitzy golden life on Fifth Avenue, is suddenly spending his days in the slums of criminal court in Manhattan?
The prosecution went long and hard, and Trump often complained of how cold the courtroom was, reportedly falling asleep.
You're sitting there for hours on end, and you're hearing just this testimony that could be very, I don't want to use the word boring, but it's a little boring.
I don't like being in court because they say very mean things about me while I am trying to sleep.
And the thing that's fascinating about this courtroom, it's the one time in Donald Trump's life he has no control.
The jury ultimately found the then former president and presidential candidate guilty on 34 felony counts.
I think, to hear guilty, 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 yeah, it goes straight to your heart.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th.
Trump now carries the burden of being the only president that is also a convicted felon.
Thank you very much. Wow.
But then shortly after winning the presidency, some good news for Trump.
Special counsel Jack Smith is officially moving to drop the January 6th election interference case against President-elect Trump.
While his Georgia case is now on appeal, his New York case won't be going away anytime soon because the judge has suspended sentencing and there may be more appeals.
Donald Trump cannot be protected by presidential immunity in relation to his conviction in his hush money trial. That's the ruling in from Judge Merchan.
Every year, the Supreme Court hands down major decisions, but this past year was truly remarkable in the number of socially and politically significant cases.
That presidential immunity decision was a giant decision, and it was clear that this court will swing for the fences on these big issues.
The Supreme Court gave Donald Trump what he wanted, deciding Colorado could not remove his name from the ballot and that he does receive broad presidential immunity. This year, we also saw the justices take up abortion rights for the first time since they struck down Roe versus Wade.
The court took on 2 cases, one involving the abortion pill, mifepristone, and also took on, for the first time, a state abortion ban.
The court might have tried to get out of the abortion jurisdiction by overturning Roe versus Wade. They are going to get case after case as women struggle to get the health care that they believe they need in states which have banned outright or have very few exceptions for abortion.
And from the Supreme Court to the mugshot seen round the world.
When that Justin Timberlake mugshot dropped, Twitter popped off. TikTok popped off. That thing was everywhere.
Boy band sensation, right? Mr. Suit and Tie himself is now being booked, fingerprinted, and having a mugshot taken of old Blue Eyed Soul himself.
Not a great moment for Justin. Dude, Uber, what are you doing? Justin Timberlake pled guilty to driving while ability impaired. But there was one celeb whose widely publicized legal problems have seemingly come to an end. Alec Baldwin was charged with involuntary manslaughter in connection with the 2021 death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust.
So Alec Baldwin has seen a roller coaster of a legal journey in the last months or years, where the case is brought up and then dismissed and brought up again, but ultimately it's dismissed with prejudice. And what that means is it's dismissed in a way that it can never come back.
His defense team was able to convince the judge that the evidence against him couldn't be trusted.
After years and years, I think a lot of people wanted closure, and I think we got it. The case was dismissed.
And you can catch up on more of this year's most notable events and moments in the ABC News special, The Year 2024 with Robin Roberts. Now streaming on Hulu. Still much more to get to here on Prime. Movie mystery solved. What did the McAllister parents do for work to afford their lavish Chicago home? Well, the director of Home Alone reveals the answer. But next, are you one of 55% of us Americans with a New Year's resolution to lose weight? Well, the American weight loss journey and what it says about our culture by the numbers.
It's America's biggest countdown party of the year. Join me, Ryan Seacrest, and my co-host, Rita Ora, live from Times Square. It's Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, with epic performances by Cody Johnson, Lenny Kravitz, Teddy Swims, Thomas Rhett, Tinashe, and more. Now there's a reason to celebrate. Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, live December 31st on ABC.
How many elephants have you killed? True natural beauty, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find. These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
What makes Elton John so iconic?
Everyone's talking about
Elton John.
Sir Elton John.
Elton John.
Elton John.
There will never be another. Everything that you want Elton John to be here.
Superstar and a legend. Now, Elton John opens up the exclusive interview with Elton John.
I'm still standing, and I am better than I ever did. And there's a lot more to come.
Elton John, still standing. Now streaming on Hulu.
It feels like we've been keeping the secret for so long.
So long? Because you posted a photo spoiling our crossover episode.
Oh, was I not supposed to do that? But I can finally talk about that hilarious...
Rob, no.
How about when Dee...
What is... No.
Charlie.
Robert. No. You can't talk about it at all. So, any questions?
All we want is to find our way home.
I'll get you home. But a crew of murderous bounty hunters is coming after us. We have to move fast.
We have no idea who he is.
You can trust me.
You're a Jedi, right?
Of course.
What just happened?
Watch this.
Skeleton Crew. New episodes Tuesdays, only on Disney+.
The news never stops. We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
Hurricane Helene
Screaming across the state.
and that's why ABC News Live never stops.
Taking you to the center of the story. As news breaks live.
ABC News Live is there for you all morning live. Right there. As events unfold across the day, breaking down the day's top stories. ABC News Live Prime going there, wherever the story is.
And ABC News Live lighting up the weekend.
ABC News Live.
Because the news never stops.
Reporting from the Capitol, I'm Rachel Scott. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
If you haven't already, you'll soon be hearing from plenty of self-help experts telling you don't make New Year's resolutions, make New Year's commitments. Well, one of the most popular commitments in the new year, shedding a few pounds. And that's tonight's By the Numbers. More than half of all Americans, 55%, said they'd like to lose weight, according to Gallup's recent annual health and healthcare survey. That number's been fairly consistent in recent years, but is far higher than the 35% who felt similarly in polls from the mid-1950s. Many people say they want to lose weight, but fewer act on it. 27% of adults told Gallup they're actively trying to lose weight, but that number differs based on gender, which might say something about our culture. 32% of women say they were seriously trying to lose weight. Men, only 23%. This year, for the first time in over a decade, obesity rates, though, did not increase. In fact, almost 1 in 3 Americans reported losing significant weight in the past 2 years, with 4% attributing their reduction to prescription weight loss drugs. The market for weight loss drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic more than doubled just last year alone. And we have much more ahead here on Prime. Actor Alessandro Nivola takes us through his very busy year as he stars in Marvel's Kraven the Hunter and the epic historical drama, The Brutalist. And how do you get a lonely, cold, and confused sheepadoodle off a frozen lake? As one New Jersey resident and police department will tell you, it is not easy.
How many elephants have you killed? True natural beauty, one of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find. These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
Is that my GTO? I built that 15 years ago, and somebody stole it.
Hi, Dad.
There's the thief.
Hey, kids, say hi to Grandpa. Papa! I'm crawling home because I'm broke. I need a place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days. The last time you walked out that door, you looked back at me and gave me a double bird.
I was 18. The double bird was how I ended all our conversations.
The news never stops. We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
We appeared to be gunfire. The former president rushed off the stage.
Hurricane Helene ravaging the coastline of Florida.
It's moving really fast, screaming across the state.
And that's why ABC News Live never stops.
Taking you to the center of the story as news breaks live.
We hear those small arms fire around us. We're right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
ABC News Live is there for you at the start of your day, all morning live.
ABC News Live, right there, as events unfold across the day. ABC News Live, breaking down the day's top stories.
Lyle and Eric Menendez, there is new evidence in this case.
ABC News Live Prime going there, wherever the story is. Are you going to build it back up?
And ABC News Live, lighting up the weekends.
With breaking news and all the latest pop headlines.
Happy Oscars Sunday.
A lot to watch for tonight.
ABC News Live.
Because the news never stops.
It's America's biggest countdown party of the year. Join me, Ryan Seacrest, and my co-host, Rita Ora, live from Times Square. It's Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, with epic performances by Cody Johnson, Lenny Kravitz, Teddy Swims, Thomas Rhett, Tinashe, and more. Now there's a reason to celebrate. Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, live December 31st on ABC.
A food delivery driver stabs a customer over a small tip. 2 backpacks filled with $1 million worth of narcotics shows up in the Canadian wilderness, and how a drone helped bring a puppy home. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown.
A pizza delivery driver in Florida was arrested for allegedly attacking a customer over a gratuity. The Osceola County Sheriff's Office said Brianna Alvalo had dropped off an order at a motel Sunday and was upset the customer gave a $2 tip for $33.10 order. Officials said Alvalo and another man returned to the motel and stabbed the customer multiple times. Alvalo was charged with home invasion with a firearm, attempted murder, kidnapping, and aggravated assault. The sheriff's office says the victim is in stable condition. The World Health Organization says a once undiagnosed disease in the Congo is a mix of common respiratory viruses and malaria. The organization says at least 891 cases have been reported in the remote area battling the illness, and a total of 430 testing samples were positive for malaria and respiratory illnesses. Officials say malnutrition has led to a rise in severe infections and deaths, especially among children under 5. Home Alone director Chris Columbus answering a long unanswered question. What did the McAllister parents do to afford that lavish Chicago home? Columbus told the Hollywood Reporters Awards Chatter podcast that Kate McAllister, played by Catherine O'Hara, was a successful fashion designer, and John Hurd's Peter McAllister may have been in advertising, though he couldn't recall. He did put to rest the notion of ties to organized crime. The McAllisters in 2024 would likely have a tougher time affording the mansion.
I think maybe the McAllisters are living in a 3-bedroom condo in Chicago.
One of America's most iconic outdoor holiday markets caught fire this morning in New York City. At least 4 shops in the Bryant Park Holiday Market were burned as tourists looked on. Officials said the cause of the fire is under investigation. The FDNY said the fire was quickly under control and no injuries were reported. A separate fire broke out at nearby Herald Square earlier this month. U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents discovered 2 backpacks in the woods with an estimated $1.1 million of cocaine inside. The agents found the backpack in Lyndon, Washington, near the Canadian border. Officials say the backpacks weighed 78 pounds and contained 30 brick-like packages with a substance later determined to be cocaine. A puppy stuck on a New Jersey lake was eventually brought home safe with the help of a drone. WABC reports the 20-month-old dog was out on the frozen lake for nearly a day after bolting from its dog sitter. WABC reports Keyshawn Patel used a drone to help police try to lure the dog and locate her as night fell before an officer was eventually able to chase her off the ice onto a nearby porch where she was recovered.
I feel even more happy that the dog is safe and it's back home.
You've no doubt seen his charm in Hollywood movies for decades, but he'll be everywhere this year. Inescapable, really. Award-winning actor Alessandro Nivola is starring in 3 feature films, all currently in theaters. Marvel's Kraven the Hunter, The Room Next Door by preeminent Spanish director Pedro Almodovar, and lastly, but certainly not least, Brady Corbet's The Brutalist. Let's take a look.
Newlyweds, they come in with an issue of better homes and gardens, and they say, you know, we like that table next to the perfume man. And we say, well, we can make you something like that. And they say, no, sir, we want exactly that.
And that's a scene from The Brutalist, which is getting rave reviews, was the belle of the ball at the Venice Film Festival. And you play this furniture store owner, and in many ways, it mirrors your family's own immigration story.
I mean, I play the cousin of Adrian Brody's character, who is he's a Jewish Holocaust survivor, and I came 10 years before and have set up this little business outside Philadelphia, and I kind of offer him refuge when he gets out of the camps. My family, you know, were immigrants on my father's side. My grandmother was a German Jewish Holocaust refugee. She didn't go through the camps or anything like that. They came in 39 or 40, just as the war was beginning. And my grandfather was an Italian sculptor who happened to be friends with the guy who I guess is credited with being the father of brutalism. Brutalism is a
type of
architectural style, in case anybody's wondering.
And yet clearly metaphor for other things.
Yes, it has a double, triple, quadruple entendre in this movie, for sure.
And it's 3 hours long, which works at the Venice Film Festival, is rare in Hollywood, or rarer in Hollywood. What can you do in a 3-hour storytelling narrative as opposed to some of these shorter ones out there?
Well, there's an intermission, so you can go to the bathroom for one
That's good to
know. Well, I mean, the movie is an epic story of a man's life, and it's dealing, you know, on a kind of grand scale, you know, with a very big story, with big themes. And so it's a big, meaty, old-fashioned Hollywood epic.
I suspect you'll get drawn into the storytelling and the acting, no doubt. Let's turn to Marvel's Kraven, which is a completely different genre that you are in. You're playing Marvel, you're playing the nemesis Rhino, right?
Yeah.
And so what's it like getting into the physicality of that, and how do you add emotional dimension?
Well, the character, his name is Alexei Sitsevich, and his moniker is the Rhino because he had a treatment done that affected his skin that way. I developed the character based on a friend of ours who's a Russian poet named Philip Nikolaev, who I highly recommend you read.
Ooh.
Great poet, and he had a particular sounding voice that I imitated, and it was like playing a Bond villain or something.
Now, you've been nominated for so many awards, but the last time you were on Broadway, you earned a Tony nomination in The Elephant Man.
That's right.
Might we see you back on Broadway as the Yale drama grad that you are?
Yeah, I think it's about time. There's a play that I've been talking about doing this fall, in fact, with Patrick Marber, so maybe that'll come together.
Well, we'll be reading the Broadway trades to find out. Thank you so much, Alessandro, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you.
Good luck with all 3 films.
Thank you. Thanks.
And currently, Kraven the Hunter and the sprawling, beautiful film, The Brutalist, both in theaters now. Check it out. And before we go tonight, we want to take a moment to salute the hardworking team behind the scenes. Happy holidays to you and yours from the entire staff here at ABC News Live Prime.
makes Elton John so iconic.
Everyone's talking about
Elton John.
Sir Elton John.
Elton John.
Elton.
Elton John.
There will never be another. Everything that you want Elton John to be, he is.
Superstar and a legend.
now Elton John opens up the exclusive interview with Elton John.
I'm still standing, and I am better than I ever did. And there's a lot more to come.
Elton John, Still Standing, now streaming on Hulu.
They're violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
Let's get this done.